Hello and happy Oscar weekend, everyone. And of course, I'm wearing my Hollywood movie premiere, I think this is Jaws, tie right now. Recently, I was very fortunate and asked to be back on the See You on the Other Side podcast, which, if you aren't familiar with that, it's a weekly paranormal podcast show put on by Mike Huberty and Wendy Lynn Staats. It's a show that talks about all things paranormal, odd, and pop culture-y. At the end of every episode, they write an original song. Very unique, very fun podcast. This last week I was on, they talked about the Oscar love curse. The idea that after someone wins an Oscar, usually they talk about women that are Oscar winners, their relationships, no matter how young or established, it ends. And so that's kind of maybe not a fun topic, but an interesting theory, at least, to go into. And in the process, we went into a whole bunch of different ghost stories revolving around celebrities. And I might start doing occasional pop-in videos like this where I'm talking to camera as a response to future See You on the Other Side podcast episodes, because they are so interesting and there's so much material to get out there. I do always want to chime in. I want to scream at my speaker like, oh, talk about this now. So instead of screaming at my speaker, I'll scream at you guys instead. One thing I was hoping to get into that we just didn't have time for on the episode was the surprising amount of Oscar theaters that are haunted. And they aren't all haunted, but a lot of them are. We'll go from current day backwards, because backwards means that the grand finale is one of the most haunted buildings in Hollywood today. A place I love talking about, so I want to save that to the end. Start where they currently are held, which is the Hollywood and Highland Center, the Dolby Theater now. It was called the Kodak Theater when it first opened. Just back in 2002 is when they started there, so they are now celebrating their Sweet 16 Oscar ceremony this weekend. It's not known how actively haunted this place currently is, but it's built on the site of a known haunted location. Long ago, there was the Hollywood Hotel, and this is one of the many places where people would encounter Rudolph Valentino's ghost. I should do a whole episode just about him. I always called him Hollywood's most traveled ghost, because he is apparently seen in over a dozen places around Los Angeles, as well as maybe half dozen or so places in New York. So he definitely, his loss of life has not slowed him down at all. He is still quite the popular person. And of course, he was the silver screen's first sex symbol. And he died at a very young age. It left so many people hurting, quite honestly, because at this time, movies were new. So to be able to go and see this person on screen and see them over and over again, people felt a kinship, as if he was a friend or a family member. Well, maybe not a family member, because a lot of women wanted to jump his bones. His fame was so huge that there are reported suicides after he passed away. Anyway, at the Hollywood Hotel right here, women would say that his spirit would appear there and give them a kind of a spectral goodnight kiss from the other side. Naturally, that room was booked out very far in advance because everybody wanted to have one more encounter with Valentino. Is Valentino still hanging out where the Oscars are currently being held? Who's to say? I don't know. We haven't heard anything yet. If you've heard anything about hauntings at the Hollywood and Highland Center, I'd be very interested to find that out. It's possible stuff is going on, but there's just so much chaos and commotion all the time that it's hard to notice it. From 1950 to 1960, the Pantages Theater was where the Oscars were held. Also, the Pantages Theater at this time period was owned by Howard Hughes. This was an interesting spot that was on the LA Hauntings tour I used to give. I used to love coming here because most of the time we were telling ghost stories that are understandably very dark, very sad or negative. This seems like it's a place where people love to come back. So this is kind of a happy ghost story location. Howard Hughes, his presence is still felt there. Frequently, it's associated with the smell of cigarette smoke. So you think this guy must have smoked like a chimney, but of course we know this guy was very neat and proper and he despised cigarettes. So it's interesting that we now associate the smell of cigarette smoke with Howard Hughes, a guy that didn't smoke. You wonder, is it some former employee who was smoking in his office, heard Howard Hughes walking down the hall and was freaked out because he knew he was about to be in trouble, and that little bit of an imprint is still remaining to this day. It's Howard Hughes himself sniffing out cigarette smoke. He would have loved to be alive today. There's also apparently the ghost of a rabid theater goer who, now that she's passed on to the other side, doesn't want to give up her seat. Now she can get in without a ticket. She is kind of felt up in the balcony. She seems to be enjoying herself still, so much so that she sings along to the performances. Even more modern performances that would have come around after she passed away, so she's apparently able to pick up new tunes. It's alleged that she's even ruined some recordings because her loud off-key singing is picked up on recordings, even though she's belting out her tunes from the balcony. And I could go in depth about Alexander Pantages, who opened this place, theater owner. He had a conspiracy against him that's pretty well documented by the Kennedy family. It's all really fascinating stuff. Pantages himself doesn't haunt this location that I've heard about, although he had 80-some locations across North America. Maybe his presence is still felt at one of those. And this was the last building he built, but he did not have a positive experience here. But the last ghost story I'll talk about with the Pantages Theater is my favorite one. And again, it's a very helpful spirit. There was a wardrobe person that was cleaning up after a performance one night. She was the last person in the building. The lights shut off on their own, and in the darkness, she tripped over something and fell. She had a moment where she was kind of beginning to panic, breathe fast, and someone grabbed her warmly by the arm, helped her to her feet, and then walked with her all the way up through from the stage, through the floor, to the front doors. As she opened the door, she was going to wait for the light from Hollywood Boulevard to stream in, and so she could thank her rescuer for helping her out, only to see that there was no one there. So again, somebody was there. It's a protective presence. Also, it's interesting to note, even though this building went up long ago, the activity there didn't start until more recently. When, I believe it was the late 80s or early 90s, there was a break-in and a lot of damage was done to the upper balcony area. It seems like ever since then, the spirits that maybe were sitting there dormant, just enjoying themselves, they've taken a more active role in protecting the space and making their presence known. Now in 1944, 45, and 46, for just a small 3-year period, the Oscars were held at the famous Sid Grauman Chinese Theater. Of course, that's the place with the handprints in the cement out front, and the place where you will be accosted by a guy in a really terrible Transformers outfit that wants to take a picture with you for $5. The ironically named Victor Killian was killed in his home nearby, but this was one of the last places he visited in life. He was a character actor. He made all these guest appearances on a whole bunch of different classic TV shows of the time period, and we don't really know how his life came to an end. He was definitely murdered by somebody. His presence is still felt here late at night at the Chinese Theater courtyard, again, where all of the handprints are. And for a big, hustling, bustling place that Hollywood is, it actually does clear out after dark. So it is possible to have kind of a quiet experience here. People will encounter an elderly man who seems kind of confused or lost, and in the process of trying to help them out, he will just vanish. And people believe that this is Victor Killian. From 1930 to 1943, another glorious time, and of course it's Hollywood's golden age, but also the Oscars were held at 2 incredible locations. They alternated back and forth year after year, and it was between the Ambassador Hotel and the Biltmore. Now, both of these, I'm getting chills right now talking about it, both of these locations are associated with very famous homicides. Of course, the Ambassador Hotel is where Robert Kennedy was killed by Sirhan Sirhan. People claim that there are hauntings associated with Robert Kennedy's assassination, but it's hard to get a real read for that. Is it just that that moment was such an important moment in the fabric of American history to this day that people are projecting this? This is a place, much like Linda Vista Hospital or a lot of other old classic buildings in Hollywood, when it went out of business, it became a movie set. I talked with a very good friend of mine, DJ McHale, who I worked with on the TV series like 29 Down, and he shot the movie The Tower of Terror for Disney at this location. He said he talked to the caretakers of the location, and as well as all crew members, and nobody reported any odd feelings, nothing at all paranormal. So maybe it's just this pocket of people that were affected by it, maybe other people have, I don't really know. I had the fun experience of interviewing DJ McHale on the See You on the Other Side podcast. I'll put that URL in the comments below. There were some stories about a woman in white seen beckoning maybe from a 4th floor window, as well as activity in the Coconut Grove, which was the really swinging nightclub that was attached and part of the building. However, we obviously won't know anything more about this location as it was bulldozed in 2005. Of course, Nowe High School is built on the property, and I believe one of the original walls still remains and serves as part of the building. So, yeah, we shall see. We shall see if any stories emerge from the students and teachers at this location. As a footnote, I gotta say my favorite dive bar in Los Angeles is right across the street, the HMS Bounty, an old dungy, dark, nautical themed dive. quite honestly. And it's in the lobby of the Gaylord Hotel, which was a classic old hotel put up by Gaylord Wilshire, who of course is the big developer that did a lot in Los Angeles, and Wilshire Boulevard is named after him. Side notes and footnotes on top of side notes and footnotes. It's in that building, in the salon downstairs, which is now the laundry room, where Marilyn Monroe had her hair dyed blonde for the first time. This building, from the bar through out the residences, does claim some hauntings as well. The other location that was sharing time with the Ambassador Hotel from 1930 to 1943 was the Biltmore Hotel. To this day, I think it's the most beautiful hotel in Los Angeles, and I urge everyone to go inside, walk around the main lobby. There's a front and a back lobby. Just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful building. And you might recognize it as that snooty, uppity location where we all were introduced to maybe the first ghost we've ever seen in our lives, Slimer. It doubled for a hotel in New York. A lot of Ghostbusters was shot in Los Angeles, not New York. But yes, Slimer was encountered at the Biltmore Hotel. And while you're there, go up to the bar on what is now the front entrance side and belly up to the bar and order yourself a drink named after a young actress who was last seen alive at this location, and that is the Black Dahlia. You can have yourself a Black Dahlia martini in honor of Elizabeth Short. Still one of the most mysterious cold case files in American history, something that I hope Paranormal Investigation gets to the bottom of in time, or maybe can help contribute to in time. I, of course, did a video all about retracing the last days of the Black Dahlia, the last days of Elizabeth Short. I like to use her real name when I can. If anybody needs a memory jog, she went missing for a number of days, and the next time she was ever seen again, she was, just gotta say it like it is, she was cut into pieces. She was found in a field just barely off the road on Norton Street in the area that is now the Crenshaw District, south of the 10, mid-city, and we don't have any clue really what happened to her. There's lots of legends, lots of theories, but nothing is known. So Elizabeth Short, last night she was seen in the lobby of the Biltmore Hotel, frantically making phone calls. Eventually, she went outside, got into a car, and that was the last time anybody ever saw her. I believe some people have claimed to see her spirit in the area of the phone banks to this day. Now, wouldn't it be interesting if somebody doing a paranormal investigation, an EVP session, was able to pick up some of that frantic conversation? If that left a bit of an indelible mark, that could really help maybe connect a lot of dots and lead to some justice for this poor girl. This glamorous, though perhaps long and drawn out annual rite of passage known as the Academy Awards ceremony checks in around 3 hours if we're lucky nowadays. The first ever one only lasted 15 minutes. Can you believe that? 15 minutes. I felt like some of the commercial breaks are about that long nowadays. It was held at the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel, which is really just across the street from the Chinese Theater and down the road from the Pantages. So a lot of the Academy Awards ceremonies really took place in the heart of downtown Hollywood. Only the first ceremony took place here. This classic location was put up by Louis B. Mayer, Sid Grauman from the Chinese Theater across the way, Douglas Fairbanks, and Mary Pickford, who of course was Hollywood's first power couple. And perhaps the people that spawned the tradition of combining names to make them a true couple, because they were known as Pickfair. The activity, it's throughout the building. It's from the pool area, which is just one of my favorite places in Hollywood. You don't have to stay a night at the very, very expensive hotel. You can go to the poolside bar, even if you're not a guest, and just hang out there. And that's, for a paranormal investigator, that's the place I feel you want to be. It's not uncommon for a security guard to see that, hey, somebody's down in the pool area after it's closed, let's kick them out. A guy gets dispatched down there, he gets down there, nobody's there. Gets on his walkie-talkie and says, hey, whoever it was that was here, they're gone now. Meanwhile, a guy still back at the control room watching on the monitors says, no, they're still there and they're standing next to you. I actually, when I was doing the tour, had somebody in the van with us as we're telling stories, and he said that he himself has seen these spectral people on security cameras, which oftentimes shoot infrared to be able to shoot after dark. And he says it's not just one individual. There'll be groups of, I don't know, phantom people just hanging out poolside still. Yeah, that's a place I would like to hang out after death as well. I'd want to hang out there right now. I should be shooting this there. The crack of the bat is heard on the rooftop because Babe Ruth used to spend some of his off seasons hanging out at the Roosevelt, and he had a batting cage installed on the roof. And people apparently still hear the mighty crack of the Bambino's bat. Montgomery Clift was cast in the Sinatra film From Here to Eternity, and in the film he had to play a bugle. Of course, he didn't know how to do this, so he would have to practice. He was staying at the Roosevelt Hotel, practicing and probably annoying the hell out of a lot of his neighbors. And to this day, people still get complaints that they are hearing horn playing coming from the hallways. Usually it's just this phantom sound, but apparently on one occasion, people saw this guy walking around the halls before then vanishing by walking through a wall. A lot of the best stories I know about haunted Los Angeles and Hollywood come from the tour itself that I gave. People on the tour that had their own experiences. And this fun one came from somebody before the tour even started, where I was going to the rental company to pick up the van I drive for the tour. Now, I'd been in there several weeks in a row ordering a 15-passenger van, and he asked, what are you renting this van for? I said, well, I give haunted tours around Los Angeles and Hollywood. And he said, you go to the Roosevelt Hotel, right? Obviously, he had something to say. And he talked about checking in there one time. He was in his room, he opened his closet door, and upon opening the door, he revealed a maid standing inside the closet, warmly smiling back at him. Now, the only rational reaction would be to hit your head on the ceiling because you jumped out of your skin. It's so frightening and unexpected. And of course, she vanished pretty shortly after. But this is an interesting case to me because it shows how a paranormal experience can override rational thought and emotion, because he said he just felt very welcome. He thought it was a warm greeting. So whoever was there, whatever happy maid is still there, she is projecting this loving, positive feeling. So again, it's a nice reminder that paranormal experiences, while they're always unexpected, they're not always negative. Of course, not every haunting at this location is a positive one. I, at one point, had an employee at the Cinegrill. He told me that he was talking to some security guards, and they had a story where they heard screaming coming down from a hallway, and they went and looked at the security tapes. They saw one of their employees, a maid, seemingly get projected, thrown out of a room, hitting the wall on the other side of the hallway, and then running away down the hall. As these stories tend to go, she quit, didn't come back, didn't talk about her experience. What in the world happened? Is that even real? I don't know, but I'm just passing that interesting, spooky story along to you. It's interesting because most everything is a positive story about this location. My last story is an Oscar story. Apparently people in the Blossom Ballroom, which held the first ever Oscar ceremony and the only one ever held at the Roosevelt Hotel, people feel a constant cold spot in this area. Unlike some stories about cold spots where it comes and it goes, where it's uncommon, this one is oddly focused right in one spot all the time, and it's there very, very frequently. So I like to get into making guesses and theories, and something that's that commonly, you wonder, is it a cold spot like we think about it, in the sense that maybe there's somebody still giving their Academy Award speech from a long time ago? Or is it some sort of a doorway that's allowing for all this energy to be coming and going, and all these entities to be continually making their presence known? It's anyone's guess. Outside of Linda Vista Hospital, which is now a private location you can't access anymore, I'd say this is the second most haunted building in all of Los Angeles and the most haunted public location that you can still visit. So thanks for watching. As always, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, all the social media stuff, What's Your Ghost Story, and the website what'syourghoststory.com, where you can sign up for the free newsletter. And we'll catch you on the next one.